So I think we can start. Yes, are the speaker here, so it's time to start. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. Welcome to the third session of the Spectrum Institute for Teaching and Learning 2025 workshop series. Today we have two presentations. For this, the speakers have 25 minutes for their presentation, and then we will have 5 minutes to discuss with the audience. It's my pleasure to introduce to the first presentation speakers, Craig Parkes and Shelley Holden from University of South Alabama. And the title of their presentation is, Does EDTPA influence student teachers' use of teaching styles? So, Craig, please, you can start when you are ready.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my slides. All right, can you see my slides okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so yeah, thanks everybody for letting me present today. I'm Dr. Craig Parkes. I'll be presenting on behalf of myself and Dr. Holden. We're faculty members at the University of South Alabama. First off, I just want to say thank you. As a faculty member that's just going through the tenure process right now, this was the second year in a row that I managed to receive this grant. And it's certainly helped me with my resume building, with the external grants that I'd received. So I'm very grateful, grateful to Autumn for all the liaising that she does with me through the process of getting the grant and spending the money and any questions that I've got. So yeah, I'm very, very grateful to the Institute for that. Thank you. And this is just a little bit about myself and Dr. Holden. So we're both faculty at the University of South Alabama. We're both former teachers, and we're both involved in our program that develops physical and health education, teacher education, teachers here in Alabama. A little bit about the EdTPA framework. It's a US-based framework for teacher assessment. Not every state in the US actually adopts it. It wasn't adopted when I used to teach in Pennsylvania, but it is part of the system in Alabama. So it's an external portfolio that assesses student teachers' readiness to teach through 3 different tasks. So a planning, a teaching, and an assessment task. Very detailed assessment, includes video clips of their lessons, a unit plan, lesson plans, assessment examples, and some pretty detailed commentaries as well that describe why they're doing what they're doing in the school during their student teaching process. The passing score is 37 out of 75, which seems pretty easy, but actually it's quite difficult to get in physical education. 37's a great scores, and if we can sneak into the 40s, even better. But especially in the few early years of rolling out EdTPA, it was quite problematic to get to a 37. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the presentation. And it's completed in an elementary school setting in Alabama, so kind of like 5 through 11-year-old students is where they would do it. And it's tied to certification and graduation, so you can't actually graduate or get certified in our state without passing this external framework, which is different to a lot of places and a lot of countries where the faculty members are normally ones that decide whether you're ready to graduate and get your teaching license. So it can be quite controversial. There's not much support out there actually for saying that it's actually beneficial. It can put a lot of stress and added workload on student teachers, and it's already a pretty stressful and busy workload as it is. A lot of research out there suggests that people just kind of fake teach to the test to get through the assessment, and then it can actually take away from student teaching. So if you're like me, when you got through all the classes and got to student teaching, that was the fun part. Now you get to actually go out there and work with the kids and learn your trade. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, the message that I'm giving my students is that for the first 5 weeks, like, you don't have a life. All you focus on is this EdTPA. And once that's done, then you can start enjoying yourself in the student teaching process. And I hate having to say that, but unfortunately, that's the kind of message that you need to give for students to do well, pass first time, and to take it seriously. Obviously, we were looking at the spectrum of teaching styles with this cohort of students. So looking at how they taught, whether it was direct, indirect, in between, or a mix. And for the sake of time and repetition, and the fact that we're all here to look at teaching styles, I'm going to move through this section pretty quickly. The other framework that we use a lot is socialization theory, looking at what influences teachers' beliefs and teachers' behavior. And obviously, the professional and the organizational stage here really play a big part, because during student teaching, you're part of the university because you're still a part of your degree program, but you're also part of that organization. You're full time, 15, 16 weeks based in a school setting. So being around your cooperating teachers, being around the students, dealing with the EdTPA within the school system. So they're kind of like the two main stages of socialization that you'd think would have an impact on EdTPA, but we did still look at all three stages. And so we were really interested in EdTPA. We've spent about 5 or 6 years trying to improve our passing scores, trying to improve our first time rate passing scores and our mean scores, with some success. But also, we're still interested in trying to get our students to use more indirect teaching styles, and that's become problematic. And I'm actually going to talk in a few of the slides about how this is a follow-on study from the same cohort of students that we used the year before in an elementary school setting. So we wanted to know how they teach during EdTPA. We wanted to know how they teach during their non-EdTPA lessons to make a comparison. We wanted to know what the biggest factors were that were influencing them. And then did the teaching styles that they used, did it actually have an impact on their score or not? So we're a four-year university in the Southeast United States. There were 6 elementary schools that were used in 2 different school districts. We had 6 participants that student taught, and all 6 of them agreed to participate in that setting. And then 5 of those took part in the study that we conducted a year ago that looked at the use of teaching styles in an elementary school during a methods course, so prior to student teaching. And we also had 6 cooperating teachers that were supervising them during their student teaching and EdTPA involved as well. Obviously, I want to talk a little bit about the cohort of students briefly and what we did last year. So last year we did methods courses. We observed them in an elementary school. We found that they basically primarily used practice style with some command. And the reasons that they gave for that was that the class sizes were huge and the behavioural issues were sometimes problematic. So this year, when we placed them for student teaching, we were very purposeful in saying, like, if we want you to be more indirect, let's put you somewhere where the class sizes are smaller and the behaviour tends to be better, and see if we can address those factors that were causing them to be quite direct with their teaching. A little bit about our program. Myself and Dr. Holden, we're both very much trying to be innovative in our approach. We do things like TGFU, game-centered approaches. We address the teaching styles. We try and promote as much as possible, like indirect teaching and the advantages and benefits of doing that, because that's how I was trained by my faculty members, and kind of bought into that model as well. Trying to move away from the kind of old traditional, old school methods of teaching. And our students in the program get a lot of observation hours. They get about 150 to 200 observation hours prior to student teaching, whether in elementary, middle, and high schools, basically seeing what it looks like in the school setting, observing teachers, and doing a little bit of teaching as well. The data collection, pretty common data collection techniques for this kind of case study. Lesson observations of EdTPA, lesson observations of non-EdTPA lessons, document analysis, and then stimulated recall interviews, and then the cooperating teachers completed interviews as well at the end. And then for data analysis, we use analytical induction, constant comparison, Basically, first phase of data analysis, we looked at what the teaching styles were that they used. Then we try to make comparisons between EdTPA and non-EdTPA lessons. Then we use the data to develop recall interview questions and then develop themes through a qualitative code book in the final stage of analysis. And then these were some of the techniques that we use pretty commonly in our research to try and make sure that the data's trustworthy. We work a lot with our students, so obviously we have to kind of deal with that and researcher effect and studentship with our students as well. And we feel like we did a pretty good job of making sure the data was trustworthy using these different techniques. So the results, it was pretty similar to the year before in that during their regular lessons, practice was definitely their preferred style of teaching. Um, Even though we put them in a place where they had small classes and student behavior was pretty good, practice was still the style that was dominant. That's disappointing to see. That's, I think, a different study because obviously we want to focus on the EdTPA for this program. But yeah, command was definitely the favorable one for EdTPA. So there's definitely a noticeable difference in, we've done a study in elementary school, it was practice. We've done non-EdTPA lessons, it's practice. And then we do EdTPA and it's definitely more direct and more command. So, okay, like, why is that the case? And there was four key themes that came from the students and the cooperating teachers that seemed to influence them going from practice style in a regular lesson to EdTPA lessons being command when they were teaching it to send off to an external reviewer. So, yeah, we found this quite interesting. So the first thing was their lessons seem to be manufactured and fabricated, which is pretty similar to other EdTPA literature that we've read from other subjects, not just from physical education. Fake teaching, manufactured lessons, and their students, teachers seem to be just so scared of failing that they develop these lessons that they think are like perfect so that they can put it on camera for a reviewer and they think that that's what the reviewer is going to want to look for. So the reviewer is going to want to see that I've got good behavior in my class and I can control the class, and keep it well managed. And that's obviously better suited to direct teaching. But that kind of contradicts what we're teaching here. We're trying to get them to be innovative and use direct teaching when it's appropriate. But when it's not, and it's more appropriate to use indirect teaching, I'm a big advocate for that. And so, yeah, a lot of the time the students and the cooperating teachers talked about the word like manufactured, fabricated, it was fake. That's not really how I teach. And I'm just doing this to kind of pass the assessment and get through the assessment, which does tie into a lot of literature that we've read from other areas like music and math, etc. The next thing is they were almost more like actors and actresses than teachers. They were really kind of playing up to the camera. So they have to film their lesson and basically they're not allowed to splice parts of the lesson. They have to pick like the best kind of 20 minutes of that lesson to send off to the reviewer. And so they're really focused on like the camera and where the camera is, what the camera can see and what the camera can hear. So that all the good things that they've tried to focus on get included on camera, and all the bad things that they don't want people to see are kind of excluded from the camera. So there was talk about like it's almost like scripted. I've kind of rehearsed it with that class before. Like I've already kind of gone through this, and the students already know the answers to the questions that I'm going to kind of ask. Um, and in the process, they forget about like what teaching's actually about, like what's going on in the lesson, and who do I need to be focused on in the lesson, and making sure that everybody's getting feedback in the lesson. They have to pick a couple of focus students from like a high and a middle and a bottom group, and they focus so much on that once again they tend to forget about everyone else that's in the class. And that kind of ties in again to that kind of fabrication and manufacturing of the lesson, trying to make this lesson look perfect when in reality like it never really does, especially when you're dealing with young people and kids. The third theme was unrealistic expectations. They're trying to hit 15 different rubric criteria in a 20-minute video. Um, that's a lot. That's a lot for me, and I've been doing this a long time. And once again, if you're focused so much on the things that you have to do, I think it takes away from you actually seeing the bigger picture and seeing what's kind of going on within the lesson. So they just felt that, like, if I'm not direct and I'm not really focused on every single thing that I need to do, um, my lesson might look good, but when they look, there might be elements of the rubric that are missing. And that's going to be problematic if obviously, I'm going to score really high on one part of the rubric, but the other one I might get a 0 because I didn't get to show that part of the rubric off. So just feeling like it was really unrealistic expectations to hit 15 parts of a rubric in a 20-minute video while you're also trying to teach seemed to be problematic. And then the final one, even though there was good behavior in the schools, they still felt a little bit like the students perceive them to be like a substitute teacher. They're there for 5 weeks normally, and then they move on to another placement. They're trying to get through the EdTPA in the first 5 weeks, and maybe they've not had the time to really kind of develop the relationships and the respect of the students yet. And so once again, the students see this regular class teacher that they've had maybe for like years, and then all of a sudden they've got someone that's been there a few days or a few weeks. And they felt that once again, being direct is just the best way for me to get these students kind of under control so that it looks good on the camera. I'm going to talk a little bit in our kind of conclusion section a little bit more about what I see as being a little bit problematic with that. So, our conclusions, obviously, when comparing the participants to the results of the prior study, they still prefer the practice style, even though the factors that they told us were a problem last year were removed. That, once again, is a little bit disappointing to see and problematic. But the biggest thing really was that there was a clear difference between going from practice style in a regular lesson to command style during the EdTPA lesson. And EdTPA seems to, check a box, get through the assessment as quick as you can and as easy as you can. But the data suggests that that's just not how people teach. They're just doing this to get through the test. And some things for us as faculty members, dealing with this all the time on a semester to semester basis, things that we need to consider, I think. So, why do student teachers think that a reviewer would want to see direct teaching? If I was a reviewer, I'm more favourable to indirect teaching. I would probably want to see a little bit more of that if I was an EdTPA reviewer. So they're almost kind of going against the things that we've taught them, which once again ties into socialization research of most people are going to teach how they were taught rather than how their faculty members teach them, at university. I think we need to encourage our student teachers to kind of trust in the process and trust the 4 years that they've spent with us, and that, I was trained by really, really good faculty members at several universities that I think made me a better teacher and a more innovative teacher and a more indirect teacher. And that's what I'm trying to promote to my students, and to trust that, like, what we've been teaching you, we think is the right way to do things. And to not just kind of fall back into old school kind of teaching just because maybe you're just more comfortable with it and you think that that's what other people want to see. Um, I think you can gain a lot of trust and respect and discipline through giving students some freedom, actually, and giving them boundaries within which to work. And it doesn't have to just be very kind of like command and direct style in order to gain that. And then one thing that I thought about this morning on the drive in was our passing rate is actually fantastic at the minute. I think we're about 8 or 9 out of the last 10 that have passed first time. So I'm also kind of thinking I would like to see more indirect teaching, but right now I'm having a lot of success with the direct style. And do I actually want to change anything if I'm having a lot of success with students passing first time? Maybe I need to be careful, kind of what I'm wishing for. So yeah, that wraps up the presentation slide. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm open to any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So, anybody have a question or suggestion?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Yes, Craig, excellent presentation. I think I'm coming to you guys from Arkansas, so very very similar. We face similar kind of concerns. Do you feel like the students are leaning towards the command style because they have 15 parts that they're trying to meet within the EdTPA, and they feel like that's more rigid, and it's something that they can check off their list to meet those 15 parts?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, obviously, I think when you look at every single theme, they're kind of all like linking a little bit together. So, we're really worried that we're sending this off to an external reviewer that could be anywhere in the United States. They have no idea about our region. They have no idea about what they've done the last 4 years. They
Right.
have no idea what we've been trying to teach them as faculty members. And then all of a sudden, like someone else is kind of in charge of, like someone else has got the golden ticket. Um, then obviously, you want to kind of be very rigid and direct because you want to make sure that everything that you've planned and scripted and everything that you think you need to get across needs to be done in that really short period of time. And so I think it's a combination of things. And then, I was really surprised that there wasn't anything from that acculturation stage, because obviously we see this a lot in socialization, is that when people get out in the field, they tend to go back to teaching how they were taught, which we know is primarily that old school direct kind of teaching. And we know that that is from our students from prior studies that we've done. And obviously, when you're in an uncomfortable position, you tend to go back to your old habits. And so I think it's just a combination of things. Now, for me, I've spent the last 5 or 6 years trying to wrap my head around EdTPA, trying to get our success rates from really, kind of quite low to now they're really high, to the point where I'm kind of in a little battle myself. Is like, I want you to teach indirect, but also the EdTPA numbers right now with you being direct make me look pretty good as a faculty member.
Sure.
And so it's yeah, it's a little bit of a problem at the minute. It's kind of like, do I want you to teach how I want you to teach? But then your scores might not be as good as what they are. But I think, yeah, I think definitely for students, it's fear, and that's not just us. That's every piece of literature I've read out there is quite fearful. Um, for somebody else that they don't know, all of a sudden, kind of being the person that's in charge of their destiny, I guess. And to the point where we've actually had students that have left in their senior year, like even in their student teaching, they've got 10 weeks to go and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Sure.
So yeah, it's definitely problematic.
Thank you.
Yep.
Nikos, do you have a question?
Yep. Thank you, Maria. Greg, thank you for the presentation. To be honest, I'm not familiar with EdTPA tool, but there is a literature review being published by Reeves and colleagues before a couple of years, discussing a couple of reasons, trying to explain why teachers, generally teachers, not only PE teachers, follow practices that are basically teacher-centered, and they're trying to keep control of their classes, just to put it simple. So I'm almost certain that, and I would like to ask you, so do you think that EdTPA is basically focused on these kind of practices? So the expectations are, having control of your class.
I'm not too sure about that. I'm not sure. Obviously, some of the rubric criteria ask for specific things. So one of the things it asks for pretty early on in the rubric is like, tell me how you're going to create a positive learning environment. But you can do that in an indirect manner, and I think a lot of the time it does depend on your students. If you've got students that are maybe, as we said in that prior study, if you've got very large class sizes and you've also got very kind of potentially problematic students in the class, then maybe you want to be a little bit more direct. But I think this time around, purposefully putting them in an environment that would have allowed them to be a bit more indirect. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more about that. I always think that the EdTPA is like anything else when you're a teacher. As long as you can justify and provide a good rationale for why you're doing this. And I always say to my students, you've got to explain in your narratives, like, personalization. Like, why does this work with this class? Not just why does it work with third grade, but this specific third grade class, because the third grade class that in a mile down the road that way could be a completely different class to the third grade class a mile down the road in that direction. And even when I taught, I would have two third grade classes in my same school, and they would be very different. So you've got to kind of know your audience, I think, and know who you're working with. But I just think it's so easy to kind of go back to what you know, and that's there seems to be a problematic theme in our field of socialization.
So you think that class size is a kind of critical element in terms of the preference in using the command and practice style, correct?
I think so. So the study we did last year, it was class sizes and behavior. And when you put the two together, they were like, absolutely not. Like we can't give them any freedom. It's going to be too problematic. We definitely saw a little bit more indirectness this time around. Even with the practice style was a little bit more indirect than it had been in the past. But the biggest thing for us was that, I don't know. It does seem that they think that they want the reviewers to see the class is under control and that that's good teaching. But like, isn't good teaching about teachable moments and dealing with bad class? Like I always say, you don't really want the perfect video because what are you going to showcase about your pedagogical skills? If you have a behavioral issue in your class, like you should address it and then talk about how you addressed it. Like that's good teaching. That's realistic. That's what happens. Um, I had a student once that got rid of his video because a kid like dropped a cuss word, like dropped the F-bomb in the middle of his video, and he was scared to use it. And I was like, that's actually a really good teachable moment. You can talk about how that's inappropriate. You can talk about your rules and your protocols, and you can address that then in your commentary. That's what it's like being a teacher. We deal with these things all the time. And I think that's where the fakeness comes in. We're trying to script and record this like perfect, fantastic like lesson. There is no perfect lesson. There's always something you're going to address, and that's problematic. In that you're doing that, but it seems to be the case. It is part of the it's the nature of the beast at the minute across all subjects. So.
Thank you. Nigel, please.
Yeah, thanks for that, Craig. I found it really interesting. I think it would be really good to do the same with actual teachers who've been working for a while and to ask them to do the same sort of thing. Because I think from my point of view, it's disappointing that the student teachers are judged in such a short time frame. And it's quite obvious that they are going to use strategies that allow them to tick the tick box criteria. Now, to me, it would make more sense if they could video a number of lessons and then pull in clips and annotate what they've done and exemplify how they've done it and why they've done it, and almost provide a little portfolio video. That would be far more valuable, I would suggest, than the current practice. So I actually think perhaps the practice needs to be modified.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the external review process like this. I think it should be given back to the faculty members. When I was at university, the faculty members I had at the University of Wolverhampton, they were the people that made me, they taught me to be a really good, innovative teacher. They were the people that I wanted to impress. And I actually just wrote an editorial for JOPID on EdTPA and said, like, really, like, I'm the person that you want to impress because I'm in charge of this program. So my name is on your product when you're out there being a teacher. And I have two kids that go to the school locally. So if you impress me, that's really, I'm basically saying I'm cool with you teaching my kids one day. Not somebody, out in, Nebraska that you've never met. And that's how I felt when I was an undergraduate student. Like I really placed a lot of value on what my faculty members thought of me because they were the ones that had molded me to teach a certain way. So I'm not a huge fan of the process, but while it's here and we have to deal with it, I think we try and deal with it the best that we can. So
thank you. So the next presentation is about peer teaching, reciprocal link to physical literacy, video analysis. And the speakers are Nigel Green and Karen Rhys-Jones from International Literacy Association. So please, you can start when you are ready.
Okay, thanks, Maria. My name's Nigel Green. I'm chair of the International Physical Literacy Association, and Karen is the education and training lead. We're going to do something slightly different, and if I was doing a presentation, I wouldn't normally show such a long video. It's a 12-minute video, but I think it's really powerful in the way it allows us to reflect. And Craig, it probably links into your presentation effectively. So the session we're going to do will analyze a video on how peer teaching, or reciprocal as we understand it from Mosston's point of view, can impact on physical literacy. At the IPLA, we believe that the Mosston spectrum of teaching styles has the potential to contribute towards developing many aspects of physical literacy. Indeed, we believe the systematic application and holistic consideration of any practice can contribute to the development of physical literacy. We're going to share with you a video clip of a cricket teaching scenario, more about that in a minute, where the students are given the opportunity and encouraged to engage in some peer teaching. We will consider how aspects of this teaching style may have contributed to the development of an individual's physical literacy. And Karen and I will discuss the impact of the teaching scenario on the students through a physical literacy lens.
Thank you, Nigel, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. So we see physical literacy as our relationship with movement and physical activity, and as such, from a physical education point of view, how teaching strategies and styles influence us in relation to how we move, how we feel, connect and think. All of our physical activity experiences influence our physical, social, cognitive and affective domains, which then impact on our decisions to be active or not throughout our lives. Positive experiences, especially in physical education, can significantly impact on our self-esteem, our confidence and our motivation to be active in the future. Craig mentioned the importance of an environment as being important, and we believe that we should view the environment holistically through a physical literacy lens. Peer teaching, or reciprocal style, allows students to work in pairs or threes. The teacher may provide the task along with clear instructions about how to work within this situation and how to provide feedback. The students will then take turns performing a specific skill, such as throwing a frisbee, while the other student observes and provides feedback on their technique, based on the specific criteria set by the teacher. The teacher's role is to support the student who is feeding back, rather than to support and provide feedback to the performer. If we remind ourselves that physical literacy is defined, according to the IPLA 2017, as the motivation, confidence, physical competence, knowledge and understanding to value and take responsibility for engagement in physical activities for life. Straight away, we may see that this teaching style is aligned as working with friends in small groups of 2 or 3, which provides a more comfortable environment for many students, and they will often feel more confident. Observing and critically reflecting on the performance of others challenges students and often leads to enhanced knowledge and understanding for both the learner performing and the learner observing and feeding back. Communicating and receiving feedback from peers is an important social skill. Whilst a focus on supporting others' learning and knowing others are supporting your learning can enhance motivation to improve. Having specific and clear criteria on which to build can also enhance physical competence.
We will observe video shortly, and as I mentioned, it's 12 minutes long. For context, however, this was me doing an observation using a GoPro of a grade 9, so that's 14-year-old children, cricket session in India, where half the group were practicing the batting, and you'll see some of that, and the other half were bowling. The teacher was moving between the groups, providing feedback, and was actually using different strategies as he was working. I was actually working with the head of department and discussing with him about the teacher and about strategies that could be used. So it's not the traditional sense of reciprocal work. It's not the whole class using reciprocal practices, but to me, it allows us to think about how reciprocal can impact from a physical literacy point of view. It's not ideal, it's not staged or scripted, but it enables us to look at the session through a physical literacy lens. There may be some things which are said or observed which you feel uncomfortable about or you would wish to challenge. We accept these are evident, but the purpose of this session is to tease out the holistic messages from the script. So as I've said, it's not scripted at all, and hopefully you will be able to see it now.
All right, so this lad here, we just noticed his technique wasn't as good. So you bowled well, didn't you? Right, come here. So, all right, I've got a job for you. All right, can you come here, please? Right, I'm going to give a little challenge to this young man to teach you how to bowl a little bit better. All right, at the moment, you might watch. In fact, I'm going to ask you to watch first and what you think he does well and what he doesn't do well. All right, so you're going to have 3 bowls. And this chap, what's your name? Aaron is going to watch you bowl and he's going to tell me what you do well and what you don't do as well. Okay, right, Aaron, you come and stand here. Okay, you ready to bowl? So have you run up as you did?
So what do I do?
You can carry on bowling as well. Yeah, after your partner. So watch him carefully, watch his run up. Okay, that was the first one. So he's going to have 2 more. And then I want you to tell me what he's doing well and what he perhaps needs to work on. And then you might have to show him how to improve. Okay? Okay, quickly go again.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to some balls here now. They're actually hitting the balls.
Yes.
So it's not linked to the forward defensive, it's linked to the forward drive, I'm presuming. Okay, so watch him carefully.
What's the base?
Teachers.
Okay,
Okay, so good teacher intervention, which is good. And the teacher actually picked up the key point, which is the footwork before he bowls. Interesting is to see whether he picks it up as well.
Yes.
Okay, so watch him carefully. Better, wasn't it? He did it better. Okay. Did you see the difference between the first? Was it better the second time? Why?
Because he threw the ball at the right time, and his arm rotated at the right, and his arm rotated at the right.
Why did his arm rotate at the right time?
Because he jumped it.
Go on.
At the right time.
So he got his footwork right at the right time. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. All right. Knowledge and understanding. Let's watch the last one. All right. Was that as good?
Yes.
Was it?
Yes.
No, it wasn't.
No, it was a dead ball essentially. His arm rotation wasn't that better as the previous one.
Right. Why was that?
Because I think so. He released the ball much earlier than before.
Why was that?
because his footwork wasn't proper.
Right, so he hopped,
Yes.
didn't he? He hopped. Okay, so his footwork is the issue.
Yes.
All right. I want you to explain to him and show him the footwork to see if he can do it. Okay. So it's interesting, he spotted the first one, and the second one was better once the teacher had intervened as well. So here we're talking about communication, right? Knowledge and understanding, yeah. And what we're doing, we're moving this fella on, and we're also moving the bowler on, hopefully.
Yes.
So clearly, he's talking about the footwork there, absolutely clearly. So the teacher's coming in now. Okay, and the teacher also added in the left arm there, getting the left arm in leading. So now we've got another student who's come in, and they're all getting involved. So actually the student and the teacher. Yeah. Okay. It's actually a very hard move to do.
Yeah.
But if these have done this in gymnastics, little turning moves in gymnastics, the link is there. If they've done a layup in basketball, it's a similar thing. If they've done a bit of triple jump, where they're getting used to different jumping movements with their feet, and if they've done a run and a throw and all sorts of things, this is where one leads into the other. Okay, so we've got a lot of information.
This boy, the other boy who came in later,
Yeah.
is a player from the 215 for under 14
Yeah.
category. So that's why
I could see you spinning earlier. He's a good bowler.
Yeah.
Can you see the shake of the head there? He knows it's not right. So the knowledge and understanding is there. So he's breaking it down. Right, left jump. Okay. And he reinforced the positive bit there because there was a positive little bit of footwork there. He's just got this double hop. And what you'll find is these will actually find it hard to break it down themselves because they can do it and they've forgotten how they learnt it. So for them to actually go backwards and break it down is challenging for them. Can you see? Yeah, yeah. So looking at this, feedback from and support from the peers, sensitive and critical feedback. They're giving him praise, but they're also being critical. All right.
First step of the second step.
So he's thinking of different ways to try and help him understand it. And that's a higher level skill. You know, you think of your teacher, a lot of the teachers going around and just give him a point and move on. He's thinking he's not learning that way. What can I do to make him think a bit earlier? And he's got this idea of the knee coming up, which take off, high knee. Oh, yes, yes. So we had 3 people there, the teacher and 2 students going, ha, yeah. Okay. So we're probably getting into a bit too much overload here now. I think he's spinning, he's got footwork. This is great. This is great. Superb. Yeah. So all the points are there. All the points are there, nice and clear. Yeah, ha ha ha. I like that, ha ha ha. Yeah. Self-esteem, I did it. Yeah, well done. So we've got, he's feeling better because he's now realizing he's actually doing it. But he might, more than likely will make more mistakes still. Come on. Yeah. So this is good because he's kept him very short with a limited run-up. Because often it's the run-up that will cause the problems. And he knows. You can see he there indicated, I was wrong there. Because so his knowledge and understanding is increasing tremendously. And so it is. And
the use of different methodologies.
Yeah.
This one does not work. This will work. This
yeah.
will work. That.
And that's what's been really good. Okay, so it's a real challenge now. There's a lot of pressure. Yeah. Excellent. Well done, young man. That was really good. And well done. You came in there with some great coaching. So between you, and obviously your teacher came in, gave you lots of support, but that was really good. And you did tremendously well, because it's really hard when one person, then another, then the teacher comes in and they're giving you lots of information, but you kept on trying, you showed a real determination to try. And you've got to keep working because it's not easy, but get the help of your friends and they'll get you improving at your cricket. So well done, all of you there. Excellent.
I lost the. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Nigel.
Yeah. Did the video stay on? Because for some reason my screen came with something else on.
Oh no, it was.
Okay, that's all right. Okay. Okay. As I said, it was quite a long video, and as you can see, it was me with the GoPro, so I was just talking, and I happened to spot a student who's not bowling very well, and I observed somebody who appeared to be bowling well, and I thought this is an ideal opportunity to share a different way of focusing, a different way of working. And as you can see, as it starts going through, I'll make some comments about the other half of the group related to batting, but obviously you need to ignore that. You can also see that the teacher realizes that the student needs some support and he provides that. And as you can hear, I also question his students about his observation, and he clearly spots the difference between the two bowls. However, on the third bowl, he doesn't quite correctly understand what the issue was. And you can see my questioning then becomes more guided discovery. So we're moving out of the different styles, aiming to draw out the key points. but then he engages in peer teaching, and there are others who start to engage in it. You can clearly see how one partner is communicating while the other is listening, which are key social skills. The lead student is providing verbal and visual feedback and technique suggestion, drawing from his knowledge and understanding. This is providing individual tuition to the bowler without the need of the teacher, but the teacher comes in again and picks up the key issues. When we then see another boy who was hovering in the area and keen to get involved, and he starts to join in the feedback. And we see a real focus on the part of the bowler, real concentration. He's trying to clarify what the skill requires, and he's practicing aspects to try and get it right. There's a clear desire for him to master what actually is a very challenging skill. And again, there's a lot of social interaction, support, and encouragement for the bowler. There are elements of positive reinforcement which build confidence and motivation as he tries to master the skill. Child who's getting the feedback is being creative and trying to get the best way of getting his points across. So he's using his knowledge and understanding. There's certainly an issue with overload as we get too many people coming in at one time, but you've got that, yes, when a number of them realize he's picking up the key points. And then by applying a limited run up, the partner feeding back realize the importance of making the skill simpler, so the person can pick it up easier. Bowler is clearly acknowledging his greater understanding of the skill. And you can see at the end, both students have been providing the feedback and instruction, are pleased with what they've done. And the student has been trying to improve his bowling, has a big smile on his face as he knows he's made progress, and therefore will be more willing to come back and try it again in the next session.
So although this was not a technically correct interpretation of reciprocal or peer teaching, we feel that it really provides an insight into how reciprocal or peer work can contribute to the development of physical literacy. We need to ask ourselves, as we consider the content of the video, how the participants' physical literacy was being developed. How do you think the boy felt when he was given the responsibility to help another pupil, especially as it could be construed as a reward for him being competent at bowling? He appeared to be very proud. What language was used? How were the words phrased? Not that the boy was doing anything wrong, but how we might do it better. There was increasing confidence to provide feedback, support and encouragement, and increasing confidence by the bowler in relation to mastering the skill. Motivation came from supporting a fellow student, and for the performer, the motivation of mastering the skill. The teacher's role of supporting the student who is feeding back presents a degree of separation from the performer, which may help build confidence as they feel less pressured, as well as an increased motivation from the autonomy being presented to them. There's the opportunity to develop and modify physical competence with the support of others. Knowledge and understanding were enhanced by both partners and competence improved by the bowler. Knowledge and understanding also came from transferability. There was talk of gymnastics and layups in basketball and making these connections. Overall, both the partners who were providing the support and the student who was trying to improve his bowling were benefiting from the holistic point of view. As a practitioner, questions that we need to be asking ourselves are: how do we enable and facilitate? Have we modelled feedback to ensure it is received with respect? Have we shared clear and specific criteria on which to develop learner competence? What are the benefits of the student rather than the teacher giving the instructions? They will speak in a young person's language in a way their peers understand and can make sense of. However, this highlights the importance of having criteria, for example, footwork, as this mitigates against the pupils just saying, "It was good." We welcome the opportunity to lay the model of reciprocal and peer teaching with a physical literacy lens. In our experience, learners love to take the role of Miss or Sir, and from a physical literacy perspective, reciprocal and peer teaching enables both parties to develop their physical literacy. Thank you.
Here ends our session, but just to say, as you can see, we've done this for reciprocal teaching, and what we're keen to do is to look at other videos and see how we can apply other strategies through the physical literacy lens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A very interesting topic. So I think we have 5 minutes. So if anybody have any question or suggestions, please add your hand. Well, no question. So
If there's no hands up, I will pick up, because I did some work in Taiwan, and I know Min and Robin are both on this call, and I worked with the teachers there using the Mosston spectrum and asking them. I went through the different strategies and I asked them to reflect on how they impacted on physical literacy. And I think as educationists, I think this is really important that we get these practical examples out to teachers so that they can see a real life situation. The problem is capturing those practical examples. And I know the video was quite long, but for me, there was a real richness in the interactions between the pupils, the teacher, and highlighting that in relation to the spectrum's strategies is really important.
thank you, Nigel. So the video is too nice. No, not too long, it's too nice. So thank you.
Okay.
So, well, if there aren't more questions, we will finish this session. So thank you very much to the speaker and to the audience for attending. I hope you can attend for the next session. It's going to be on the 28th of April. Thank you again and have a good day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Hi. Hi,
Bye.
Nigel.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a nice Easter holidays.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, you too. Yeah.
Hi, Nigel.
See you, Nikos.
Bye-bye.
In